Good morning, IBM TechCon attendees, and welcome to our 7th annual technical conference for thought leaders and creators. I'm your host, Alex Wiley, Director of Marketing for IBM Americas, and I am delighted to kick off our virtual experience again this year. We have entered the age of AI-powered automation. With these wonderful new tools, we have seen an explosion in applications and APIs. Business success requires continuous management of technology investments and application performance, but complexity stands in the way. On average, an enterprise uses over 1,000 applications. IBM can help automate technology lifecycle management with AI for unmatched productivity. One of our newest additions to the portfolio is IBM Web Methods, and that is the focus of our keynote today. Without further ado, we take you to Herndon, Virginia, where we check in with Subhash Ramachandran, Program Director of Product Management for IBM Web Methods. Subhash, we know an AI revolution is here, and yet we struggle with both the complexity and growing skills shortage. Integration architecture is among the top 5 hardest to find tech skills. Can you take us through how Web Methods is helping to tackle this issue of complexity?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Alex, and really excited to be here today to talk about how Web Methods and the IBM Hybrid iPaaS platform can help build a composable business architecture. Of course, it's powered by our Hybrid iPaaS. But I want to take you through first sort of the market landscape and see where exactly we are today. Now, according to an IDC market note from April 2024, they forecast that 1 billion new applications are going to hit this landscape by 2028. Now, this is a huge number driven by generational shift that we're seeing in computing, right? All the way from mainframes to 3-tier client-server architectures to cloud-native computing. In fact, we are right in the middle of that generational shift. And all the way to the 4th generation that we're already seeing the move to, which is going to be all about AI-native hybrid multi-cloud scenarios. Now, all this continues to underscore the growing complexity and capability of application ecosystems. And to excel in this very dynamic environment, having a grounding in integration, APIs, and data are essential to the success of these hybrid multi-cloud AI transformation initiatives. So we know that if this is the goal, then your architecture has to follow suit. So let's take a look at the architecture that you have today, and hopefully some of you get a chuckle looking at this pretty picture. In fact, this is a picture that I got from one of our clients, a few years ago. So this is reality in terms of the IT architecture that some of our clients have. And what has happened over this time frame is that the rapid growth of app and data and devices, as they increase, and now even more so by AI, the need for integration has not gone away. If anything, it has increased even more. But the way that organizations have tried to solve this problem by building point-to-point integrations or point-in-time integrations have created these very brittle connections. They've created more complexity, inefficiency, resulting in silos of integration, right? So that is the irony. Integration first came about because it needed to solve the problem of silos of data and applications. And the result of doing integration sort of in this tactical way has unfortunately created silos of integration. Now, over the last few years, as digital transformation initiatives have only accelerated, this need for integration has further grown. And this approach that organizations have taken has only worsened the problem and led to more complexity. So now these siloed integration solutions have created islands of automation, they've increased operational costs, and honestly, it's unsustainable. And we call this mess that is currently there in a lot of IT landscapes today the chaos of connectivity. So then what is the answer, right? So, and it's a little hint to sort of the picture that you saw right at the beginning about Lego blocks, right? Who doesn't love Lego blocks? And this is something that all of us have, as kids, have used. But for all the simplicity that you associate with Lego blocks, there are also some very simple terms that you can start associating with these blocks, right? Terms like assemble, change, modular, reusable, flexible, adaptable, agile, right? These are all the terms that you would typically associate with Lego blocks. But the one term that I want you to remember is the word composable. So, what all these words imply is the fact that I can compose something very quickly out of these building blocks that I have in place. Now, why is this important? Because it's not just about the architecture, but it's also about what we believe at IBM that the future itself is composable. So let's take you through sort of how we see the journey and the different personas actually interacting, right? So to begin with, you have the users, the consumers, the end users, right, who are consuming these applications. Next, you have the composers. And so here we are in the AI age, and we talk about AI infused or AI generated, the ability to have orchestration skills to actually compose things. Then you have the curators, and these are the folks who employ a catalog. This catalog can go across multiple domains, applications, systems. They're unified for all types of the asset types that are available. They're also discoverable by AI. And then finally, the creators and providers, right? These are the backend applications. You have the SaaS, you have the legendary or the mainframe applications. These are underpinned by technologies around integration, around APIs, event-driven architecture, and then LLMs and AI models, right? So this is sort of the sequence of steps that we see in terms of how composability can even come about. Now, before we go too deep into composable architecture, let's take some real life customer examples. These are IBM clients who have incorporated composability into their implementation, into their architecture, and have seen great benefits as a result of it. So we have a retail customer, and in the retail industry, topics like customer satisfaction and improving customer loyalty are huge for these customers. And what we've done with one such customer is we helped them develop a mobile app for curbside delivery. So if you remember back in COVID times, retailers had to quickly roll out their mobile apps or update their mobile apps for curbside delivery because people were scared to go inside the stores to pick things up. And so this customer of ours were able to compose such a solution in just 6 weeks and roll it out so that their business was not disrupted. Then we go into banking. And in banking, the idea is really to help build great banking experiences for end users who are coming into the bank so that they continue to love what they're seeing and see the offers that the bank is able to provide for them. So an example here is an IBM customer in banking who rapidly did customer onboarding via account management composable services so that their customers did not have to spend the time figuring out how to do this. And once they onboarded, they were able to enjoy the benefits of all the services that the bank was able to offer to them. Another example is in the logistics or the shipping space, right? And here, very important to those organizations are being able to deliver goods faster at lower costs, and also being able to handle returns gracefully. And so here, the example is an IBM customer who was able to build this composable fulfillment process that reduced disruptions and improved the entire shipping experience. And then finally, in the healthcare space, where patient care or providing hypercare to patients and being a trusted healthcare partner to patients is of critical need. And another example of an IBM customer who was able to manage patient health using composable monitoring of wearable devices. So these are all real life examples of how composability can help, and not just help, but also differentiate in the experience that end users get. And this is what many of our customers have seen. Now, having said that, there are some business challenges today that is really inhibiting or holding back organizations. And these challenges are around what we repeatedly hear from our own customers. We do not have enough skilled people to do development or integrations. Our integration approach is not working anymore. It was defined in the year 2005, and 20 years later, we are still using very old approaches using central IT. Integration takes too much time. We do not have weeks and months to roll things out. It's now down to hours and days. And then finally, the whole process is way too expensive for us. So these are sort of the business challenges related to people that we consistently hear from organizations. And so there needs to be an answer to solving this problem without having to tell our customers or different organizations that they just have to go and hire a whole bunch of very technical, skilled people. So the answer lies again back in the simplicity of Lego blocks, right? So what would you or I do if we were a 6-year-old and had to build something from scratch? We would look at our little box of Legos and we would pick our green Legos and yellow Legos and red Legos, and we would build something very quickly that we wanted to compose or build. Very similarly, if you look at the business and technology infrastructure that we have today, there are such reusable components. These are APIs, these are events, and these are microservices. These have been built in your IT environment for months and years, and they are all waiting to be discovered and leveraged. And oh, by the way, you can very quickly build a reusable application based on these building blocks. They can be focused on customer experiences. These new applications can be very rapidly prototyped, tested, and built very quickly. And then these are not industry specific. In fact, these applications, these building blocks go across all the different industries that you see online there. And this blurring of industry is important because this is a horizontal set of technologies that is relevant and applicable to a wide range of industries. And once you do that, you also notice that certain ecosystems across industries start emerging, which then helps you grow your business and create new revenue channels. So this process allows you not only to leverage things that have been previously built before, but also allow you to discover new potential, new ways of doing businesses. We all know a lot about APIs and microservices, and so that is not new to a lot of people. But events is something that not very many people fully understand. And so I have a picture here for you, and some of you are wondering, am I talking about events or is this some kind of a Rube Goldberg machine? And maybe it's a combination of both. But the most important thing I want to explain about events is what is it, right? It's a thing, it's something that happens. And an event is something that happens that is of importance to the business, right? And so here are some examples of such events. The arrival or the receival or the receipt of a purchase order, that's an event. The sending out a shipment, that's an event. The arrival of a customer at a store, that's an event, right? These are all examples of business events. And so when an event occurs, you want to be able to be notified of the event, and then you want to be able to do something with it. And so the key here with events is the context, and more specifically, real-time context. It's very hard to build those great customer experiences that I've talked about without fully understanding real-time event context. So that's the sort of the starting point for what I want to say about events. Next, let's move into why events, and let me just quickly bring upon the old concept of event-driven architecture. And again, I said old mainly because EDA is not new. It's been around for a couple of decades. But in my mind, events and EDA is really coming back mainly because events, just like APIs before them, became a business term. Events is becoming a business term. So let me further explain it, right? So you see on the slide, a simple example of a customer entering a store, making a purchase. As soon as they make the purchase, you kind of trigger this, stock event where you have a reduction in inventory. That triggers perhaps a low quantity event. And then you have a decision point. Should I reorder? In which case I go and restock the inventory, or say, no, I don't need to reorder. I'm fine with the current level and restocking is not needed, right? So a very simple process that occurs for a retail store customer. But what you see here is that when you have an event-driven system and process, this allows you to react to events in real time and allows the business to instantly respond to customer actions, and then they can trigger some backend updates and changes. And then with EDA, your systems are efficiently able to handle large numbers of these events across diverse systems, all for the purpose of generating that superior customer experience. Okay. So we've talked about the building blocks, APIs, microservices. I've given you a little more insight into events. So let's then recap what are the key architectural principles that make that makes composability a reality. SOA? Oh my God, we are in the year 2025 and you're wondering why the speaker is talking about SOA. Isn't service-oriented architecture dead? And you're right, SOA is dead and it has been dead for a long time. But the reason I bring SOA into the conversation here is that the principles that SOA was based on are still alive and well and very relevant to this discussion, right? What am I talking about? So standard contract, being able to have this contract between subscribers and or producers and consumers. The loose coupling between these two types of personas to make sure that systems are not too dependent on each other. In fact, microservices is based on loose coupling. And then finally, abstraction, right? Being able to cleanly separate out the implementation from the interface, and modern day APIs are based on the abstraction concept. And all this leads to composability because these are the key architectural underpinnings that will make composability also successful. So let's next look at what is needed for a composable business architecture. And so if I look in terms of what we've already talked about, you need the building blocks. These are the assets, and I've talked about APIs, events, and microservices being those assets. Next, I need a catalog, right? How do I know what is available? So I need to catalog all these available assets. And then finally, once I understand what assets are available, I'm able to now compose them into something, right? And we'll see what that something is very soon. So who's actually doing this? Typically, your assets, these building blocks are more technical. These are created by a developer, an IT specialist, an integration specialist, for example. You have an architect who's responsible for cataloging all these assets. And then we have a business technologist who would be typically responsible for composing. So you may be thinking, who's a business technologist, right? So this is someone in the line of business, could be a business analyst. Think of this person as a data scientist, a domain expert, a subject matter expert. They know their business well. They're technical in terms of being able to do things using a tool, but they are no hardcore Java developers to actually write code, right? So these are business technologists. Their focus is the business, they understand it, and they want to be able to build things very quickly. Now, across what they do, the developer is actually designing things, of course. The architect is actually looking to provide discovery and governance of everything that is around these assets. And the business technologist is looking to orchestrate that into something meaningful. And then finally, how are they going to do this? And this is where I'm going to introduce the iPaaS, or Integration Platform as a Service, perhaps as a studio where the developer designs APIs, events, and their microservices-based integrations. There's a catalog or marketplace that allows for discoverability and governance. And there's a workflow tool that allows orchestration to happen. So let's tie all this together, right? What am I composing? How does it look like, right? So organizations can power their next-gen applications with this composable architecture. This is built upon trusted, well-managed, reusable APIs, events, and microservices. These are the building blocks that I've been talking about. So the idea here is that there's a separation between the reusable capabilities and the automations that they power. So we're going to take a look at this automation very quickly. So when someone wants to build this business automation flow, these underlying published capabilities are used without any need for that end user, in this case, probably the business technologist, to understand what the underlying APIs or integrations applications are all about. Now, these capabilities are published, as we know, as APIs, they're events, maybe to a marketplace, and that's what helps drive topics like governance and discovery and lifecycle management. But they are all self-serviceable, right? So the business technologist is able to quickly understand what is there and adopt it for their need. And all this is based on the principles that I just talked about earlier, right? Standard contract, loose coupling, abstraction, and finally composability. So let's take a look at how something like this would work through, right? So if I'm looking at typically an order process where I'm receiving the order, this is an event, and then getting the customer information through an API. The order is then picked and shipped. This is also done through an API. The order is then delivered. This is an event. The invoice is sent. This is an API. And finally, the order is fulfilled. It is an event, and it completes the entire order process. This whole automation can be composed and built by a business analyst, or what we call a business technologist, without any knowledge of the details of the underlying APIs or events that are being triggered as part of this end-to-end flow. So that is the advantage here. Now, how does this simple composition look like? So here is a no-code palette that we have as part of our hybrid iPaaS. You can simply drag and drop capabilities that the developer or the IT specialist has built for you. And you have a simple wired view or a multi-step for you to build a multi-step process. This would be what I would call an example of a simple composition. Now, compositions do not need to be simple. They can be fairly complex and detailed based on what your requirements are. So here is an example of something more complex. It is an order flow that is going based on some decision whether this order is going to be processed in the US, in the EU, or in UK. And so you see the complexity here in terms of what can be quickly still composed, built by a business technologist, leveraging a lot of the underlying APIs and events that have been pre-built for them, with full error handling and full retry logic, so that this can truly be not just a business flow, it can be an enterprise scale business flow. So just a quick example of what is possible using the composition layer. So now's a good time. I mentioned iPaaS a couple of times for me to help introduce where I come from. Alex introduced me as coming from the web method side. It's very exciting to be part of IBM. And what we have now done is bring some of those capabilities that web methods had with our iPaaS and into the world of IBM. And we are now making this IBM's hybrid iPaaS. IBM's hybrid iPaaS enables composition. I just explained how we do that by democratizing development. And this is key. This is the business challenge that I outlined a few slides ago in terms of the skill set shortage. So you democratize development by bringing in new participants, the line of business, the business analysts, who previously have not participated in this process, but are now equipped using composability to build automations on their own. At the same time that we bring in more people, this is where central IT gets worried that they are losing control. And so ensuring governance and making sure that IT is able to provide the right guardrails for these new users to be able to do what they want becomes critical. And so this is the basis for how we define and position IBM's hybrid iPaaS. Two key aspects here. One is providing higher productivity. In fact, if you see the whole idea of how composability happens, it is through the notion of being very productive, either using no-code composition tools, as well as employing Gen AI assistants, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then what makes this platform enterprise class and enterprise wide scale is the hybrid control, because you have the ability to now deploy these runtimes and integrations across a very distributed networking or computing environment, and giving the end users the ability to develop the integrations anywhere. It can be on their laptop, it can be on the cloud, and then deploying those integrations anywhere. Now, we know that integration is at the heart of iPaaS. After all, it's integration platform as a service. But integration has now taken on an even more critical role, especially as organizations are embarking on their enterprise-wide AI transformation initiatives. And we know that enterprise AI transformation requires you to unlock all the data silos across apps and B2B partners, APIs, file, events, messages across the board. And not only that, being able to bridge everything from mainframe applications to modern day SaaS, supporting hybrid deployment patterns and applications, because applications are no longer just on premises, they are in private cloud, they're in public cloud. And then being able to leverage what AI or Gen AI is bringing us in terms of the modern day AI agents, all becomes important and makes integration a competitive advantage for any organization that is undergoing AI transformation. So to summarize, the IBM Hybrid iPaaS is a unified integration platform as a service, providing a single common interface, a control plane, and I'll talk about that in just a bit, supporting multiple different integration patterns across app, API, B2B, file, and events that help enterprises accelerate innovation, derive value from data, infuse AI, and also modernize their applications. So that is how we are positioning and presenting the IBM's Hybrid iPaaS. Let me take a couple of slides to talk about the key differentiating elements that we have as part of IBM's Hybrid iPaaS. I already mentioned this, but first and foremost, we are multifaceted. So we know that integration is not a single problem. It is a set of use cases that go across app integration, B2B or partner integration, API management, managed file transfer, as well as event-driven integration. Streaming events have fast emerging as a new pattern for integration use cases. The next is a unified user experience. So once we have all these different capabilities in a single platform, the end user expects a single place for you to have administration, monitoring, user management, entitlement, the usage of your data. And then very important for many organizations is observability and visibility. And through the idea of an end-to-end monitoring, where it can literally dynamically draw out how transactions flow through our entire iPaaS in a graphical way, so that as an end user, you can see maybe data came as an API, came into my B2B layer, went into the integration layer, and every step of the way, I have the picture drawn as to how this transaction went, so that if there's an issue, if there's an error, I can quickly drill down and understand where that error is. And then we have two very important concepts here: central control, distributed execution, as well as develop anywhere, deploy anywhere. So I briefly touched upon this. Central control is the centralized, the hybrid control plane that gives you full visibility over all your distributed runtimes, so that you can truly act and work in a hybrid manner. And then the ability for your end users to use maybe the tool of their choice for developing integrations, building this composable layer, either on a laptop using a pro coder tool like Eclipse, or directly in the cloud using a web-based tooling or a zero footprint tooling like a lot of modern IT people want to use. Doesn't matter which tool you use or technique you use, you'll be able to build those integrations once and then deploy them anywhere. Just continuing through another set of differentiations, I mentioned all the different personas so far, right? We have the developer, we have the IT specialist, we have the software engineer, we have the architect, we have the business technologist. And so what our platform allows you to do is provide this unique experience for these individual personas, all with their own way of working. So we have not watered down the experience. We haven't provided lowest common denominator. We provide a unique experience depending upon the persona actually interacting with the tool. And all this leads to composability. In fact, the topic for the discussion today was around the composable business architecture. This itself is a differentiator for our iPaaS because it allows you, as I've been describing, you to leverage the underlying set of APIs, integration, events, and microservices. A couple of other quick things to just highlight. One on the business front in terms of usage-based pricing. Our transaction-based model follows exactly what the cloud infrastructure vendors do in terms of their pricing and truly makes it a pay-as-you-go model. And then finally, AI-driven productivity. I briefly touched on using Gen AI and AI assistants and moving into AI agents for being able to execute tasks and different actions. And then finally, why IBM's hybrid iPaaS for composable business architecture. I want to lay out three overarching non-functional benefits. The first one around agility. And this is really the ability for you to adapt very quickly to new business needs, the way you want to work, and the flexibility that we offer for different personas, and the different deployment models that you may have as part of your requirements. The second one is around productivity and using no-code, low-code tooling, as well as Gen AI and AI assistants and agents to really get more done, more work done in less amount of time becomes really important for organizations. But finally, governance, right? And this is key to the whole discussion. All this flexibility and self-service does lead to questions about, hey, am I losing control? Are people doing things that they shouldn't be? And so we have the ability to grant that autonomy within the guardrails that you define for your organization while ensuring enterprise-grade security, the kind of data protection, privacy that you need for actually processing data within maybe country boundaries that you define, within data center boundaries that you define, and truly be able to implement such a platform in a hybrid IT landscape. Thank you very much for watching this presentation today. And at this time, I'll just turn it back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Subhash. Sounds like web methods can really help businesses move faster. We have a lot to talk about. Don't worry, we have set aside dedicated time to have in-depth conversations. There are 6 tracks of content: application development and runtimes, 3 tracks on integration topics, a whole track around technology business management, plus a track for infrastructure management and security. Hopefully, you've had the time to select what session you will attend first and build an agenda. Make sure you ask questions and make comments in the chat so our experts can respond in real time. Your experiences and insights are valuable input to our development process. If you run out of time or think of a question after the session is over, join our office hours at the end of each day to bring up the topics you want to discuss. Check out the focus topics and guests joining each day. There is a lot of content to take in. You don't have to do it all in one day. When you come back each day, the previous sessions will be available on demand so you can catch up with anything you may have missed. Plus, you don't want to miss our daily chat with Adam Chire, co-founder of Siri and Viv Labs and current VP of AI Experience for Airbnb. This dynamic speaker will help us explore how conversational AI and assistants have propelled innovation and productivity with technology. There is no better way to get inspired than to hear some insights from an industry trailblazer. And with that, IBM TechCon 2025 is officially open. We know that your time is valuable, so thank you for spending your day with us. IBM can help make AI and automation your competitive advantage.